Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A disappointing loss for the Browns, 16-14, final play of the game against the Las Vegas Raiders yesterday at First Energy Stadium. Browns now in last place in the AFC North and really need to win out to have any chance of making the NFL playoffs. A little later in the show, Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, will join us. We begin by talking Browns, some injury news from that disappointing loss last night. Takk McKinley ruptured his Achilles. He is out for the year, will need surgery. John Johnson day-to-day with a hamstring injury, and Myles Garrett, you saw him hobbled late in that game with a groin injury. No word yet. Browns need more test results before they determine the severity of that injury. Kevin Stefanski met with the media earlier today via Zoom, talked about that loss last night and how tough it was.
Incredibly disappointed with the result last night. Very, very frustrating to not come away with a win. Getting the lead late in that game and then not finishing was frustrating. Not a lack of effort by anybody involved. I thought the coaches, the players that were out there fought their rear ends off, and I appreciate that, but ultimately didn't get the job done, and that's what stings this morning. But we're on a short week, so we're going to very, very quickly turn the page and get ready for a big game versus the Packers.
And let's welcome in Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. And Mac, when you look at that, it's hard to explain how that one ended up in the loss column.
Yeah, Dave, you could tell that they had that in the palm of their hands at that point, with the way that the game ended up playing out. And especially, too, you got to give credit to the defense, because for a team that, again, had so many players that you weren't sure if they were going to be able to come in, they were going to be able to play. You had guys like Greg Newsome who weren't even affected by the COVID-19, laundry list of players that were added in. But at the same time, you look at the group of players that were able to go out there and execute and be able to hold the Vegas Raiders down to just 14 points. Again, to 16 points rather. They really did their end of the bargain. But at the same time, on the other side, that's where I take a lot of issue, because, early on it felt like they were trying to get it going, but it wasn't necessarily as aggressive as you would like them to be. You saw a little bit of that aggressiveness and them have that success in the beginning of the second half and in the fourth quarter as well. But then once it got towards the end of the game and they had that lead, you felt like they were just playing not to lose at that point. And it wasn't trying to be aggressive and trying to win, put a stamp on this one and basically just end the ball game at that point. But no, it was them just trying to make sure they could run the clock out and try to make sure that they would be able to, not lose this ball game, which in actuality ended up backfiring on them at that point. So that's my biggest frustration when it comes to this ball game, was that it wasn't the aggressiveness. And even where people were complaining about Stefanski having that lack of aggressiveness towards the end of the ball game, you saw that earlier on in the season against the Texans even as well. But this is a game that they should have won. And again, for it to fall short, it's not just disappointing because of the result. It's disappointing because of how they got to that result.
Yeah, and we'll get back to that in a minute. Some discussion on that thought. But the defense, you had the lead. The defense simply needs to make a stop, and they don't do it. It's kind of interesting. So Myles Garrett was clearly less than 100% late in that game. No update on if he'll be available for the Packers. Last night, he talked about kind of fighting his way through that groin injury late and that last drive that Derek Carr and the Raiders put together. Here's Myles Garrett from last night.
Maybe I had to play through pain, injury. Everybody dealing with something, so I don't feel sorry for myself. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I gotta get right, get ready for Christmas Day. We got another game.
Was that a new injury, Myles?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Myles, what was this week like? Now, kind of looking back on it, not knowing who you were going to have day to day, and even today, not knowing who you were going to have.
Yeah, it was tough, but can't lie. I was excited before the game. Tackling another challenge. It's something new, something different, and I know the guys who are next man up. They were ready to go. They were ready to go, and get an opportunity to go out there and make some big plays. And they did. We just needed a couple more.
You guys did a pretty good job on
Raiders in that second half until that last. What did Carr do in that last drive to just to put it together?
Got it off quick. It was a lot of quick throws and middle of the field, and I mean, he's good at that. There wasn't a lot of time for us to rush him and get there, put pressure in his face, and he was able to. There was enough time for him to check down pretty much down the field, and good for him.
Mac, the one thing I would say about the defense, there were some instances in that last drive where they let guys get out of bounds, didn't tackle. There was some fundamental things that you can't do, and you know it was some of their better players making the mistakes, letting the tight end get out of bounds on a 2nd and 11 where he split 2 defenders and with like 20-some seconds left. Right there, if somebody makes that tackle with 26 seconds left, completely different outcome. Again, there's no timeouts.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's situational awareness, and it's understanding that, hey, they have the ball, they have no timeouts. If we just keep them in bounds, this game's over. We don't have to worry about any of this. But, you know, looking at the way that the game was handled, there were a few times where, you know, to be honest, I was a little disappointed in the tackling from this defense where, you know, even Greedy Williams, where there was at one point he tried to, you know, lower the shoulder into the legs of Josh Jacobs, and he kind of leapt over him at that point. He was able to get out of the tackle. And, you know, other than Javonte Moffett, who I thought made the best tackle that I've seen all year, you know, there were a few times where I was disappointed in the tackling. And, Dave, you're absolutely right, because, you know, a lot of times, and I look at Hunter Renfrow especially, you know, there were times where they were running that zone coverage, and Hunter Renfrow, again, a guy who isn't going to wow you athletically, but he's smart enough and he's a technician where he's able to find those holes in the zone and he's able to find those weak spots. That's where you have Derek Carr, and he was able to, you know, take down this defense because he knows where in the zone to hit you and where to have these guys be in a position where they can get out of bounds. And for the defenders, they need to make sure that they take care of business when it comes to that.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, Marcus Spears will bring up the Browns' last offensive drive, and this is the one that you kind of alluded to. Here's Marcus Spears from ESPN's Get Up.
I just look at the possession before the Las Vegas Raiders got the ball back and were able to go down and set up Carlson for a kick to win the game. I know, and Jeff Saturday might have a conniption right now. But, Jeff, I got to try to throw the ball and get a first down, bro. They ran it 3 times with Chubb. And I understand the psyche and the ideology because you got Nick Mullens at QB. You dealing with the Raiders did a good job against the run for the most part last night. But when you in that situation, and, G, you just showed the implications of winning or losing that game had. Give them an opportunity to get a ball to Njoku with a matchup, or try to just come up with a concept to get one first down, man. Just get one first down. I hated that little series of trying to run the ball 3 times and get Derek Carr the ball back, man. It bothered me for as well as this team was able to stay in this game with the circumstances that they were under. I would have loved for them to have a shot at throwing it and getting a first down.
All right, Mac. So Nick Mullens played really well. He played as well as I thought he would, and I thought he'd play well. I don't think anybody would argue with that. My question to Marcus Spears and to you would be, are you going to put the ball in Nick Mullens' hands to win it, or are you going to put the ball in Nick Chubb's hands to win it?
Now, I hear it. I hear you, and I'm going to sound crazy.
It's a no-win situation for the play caller in that instance. That's all I'm saying. Again, would I have complained if they had Nick Mullens throw it? No. But how can you argue with giving the ball to Nick Chubb? Because that's what you've heard for the last 5 weeks. Why aren't they running the ball more? Why aren't they running the? Yeah. Well, now they run the ball. Oh, you should have thrown the ball. It's all hindsight.
No, and I hear that, Dave. And I guess my biggest complaint is that if it weren't for the last drive where they got a touchdown and they had multiple deep passes to Donovan Peoples-Jones, they had a couple of good screens as well when it came to that drive. You know, Nick Mullens was having success on that previous drive. If that was earlier on in the game and he was maybe, you know, a little more tentative in the previous drive, okay, fine. I completely agree with you. But at the same time, he was really getting into a rhythm in that last drive. That's where I thought, you know what, maybe you mix it up, not on third down, you mix it up maybe on second down at that point and try to expand that defense so that they have to respect that on third down. And I completely agree. I'm all for giving it to Nick Chubb. But when it's late in the ball game, you're trying to run the clock out at that point. And again, the defense knows you're going with Nick Chubb at that point. I wouldn't be opposed to, maybe first or second down trying to throw the ball, and then you go ahead and give it to Nick Chubb where he has that kind of push. I just didn't see that push as much throughout the game from the offensive line and from the ground game. Obviously, you had some success with Nick Chubb, 91 yards in the game. You're happy with that. But at the same time, I do feel like if you were able to throw in maybe one or two passes from Nick Mullens early on in that drive at that point, that might open up the defense a little bit more so that you have more success with Nick Chubb.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with it. I just think it's a no-win situation for the guy calling, whomever was calling plays. It happened to be Alex Van Pelt. If it was Kevin Stefanski. If it doesn't work out, everybody's going to say, you should have done the other thing.
Right.
Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, Colin Cowherd couldn't stop talking about Baker Mayfield. We'll hear from him on the other side of the break. Plus, Kevin Stefanski will weigh in on Nick Mullens' performance. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
We showed you a few weeks ago Colin Cowherd's poll that was won by do not talk about Baker Mayfield and the Browns anymore. Well, like any good topic, Colin is back talking about Baker Mayfield and the Browns quarterback. Here is Colin Cowherd from The Herd.
Cleveland's not that good. They win, they lose. They win, they lose. They win, they lose. They're 500. They've had one winning streak all year. They beat the Texans home, Bears at home, and the Vikings and scored 14 points? 14 points. That's what they are. They're just not special. And it's interesting yesterday. So I said this yesterday. For a game, Nick Mullens is fine. And he was. Just interesting. Nick Mullens completed 67% of his throws with a roster riddled with COVID. Baker Mayfield's completed 63% of his throws all year. His passer rating was 90. That's Baker's. He went one touchdown, no picks. That's what Baker averages. In fact, if you look at Mayfield's average this year, Keenum's one start and Nick Mullens one start. Same damn guy.
Mac, it could be that's the system that they're playing in, that's what you're asking the quarterback to do. I don't know. That's what that says to me.
Dave, at one point do we say that this is just Stefanski's system?
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's constantly the comparing back and forth with Baker. I get that, and I understand he's the lightning rod for all this. But, again, a quarterback who apparently is super successful in his first start in over a year completes 2/3 of his passes for less than 150 yards. Yet, apparently, some people and I know it's probably somebody that's absolutely screaming from the back in the very vocal minority that are screaming about, let's go ahead and put Nick Mullens out there, fine, whatever. And for Cowherd to go ahead and compare Mullens to Baker, I don't understand what you're looking for. I don't know why you're making the comparison. Because, again, at the end of the day, if not even Kevin Stefanski wasn't even calling the plays, it was Alex Van Pelt last night, and you're still getting the same results because it's the same system over and over again, you get a little bit of aggressiveness in the second half, have some success, and then all of a sudden you go, you know what, we're just not even going to put it in their hands. We're not even going to try to be aggressive. We're just going to try to run the ball out. Let's get out of here and fine. I don't know what you're looking for. You talked about a no-win situation for the play caller. This is a no-win situation for the quarterback. Because at this point, I look at the way that this offense is set up, and if you underperform, it's your fault. If you overperform, it's because of the supporting cast. I don't know how you can be a quarterback in this system and be successful or looked at as being a successful quarterback in this system.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. It's set up to run the football and then, take some chances downfield. All right, time for us to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, and this is one of our frequent voicemailers, Ron Byer.
Wow, Dave, unbelievable. This year, above all years, I did not think after only Game 14 we would again have to start talking about what changes we must make for next year. A year of major disappointment. The second half of this game said it all. We were able to fight back from defeat to take the lead, but again could not make the final key play to finish it and had to taste the rotten taste of defeat again. And now we will have plenty of weeks ahead to give our opinion of what changes need to be made, and there are plenty of them. But until then, we have 3 weeks left to see what mental toughness and desire is in these players and this team to finish this season.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting when you look at this, Mac. So Nick Mullens makes play on 4th down. They score with 3:45 left in the game. They get an interception after that with 2:47 left in the game. And still, they're unable to win the game. At some point, it's guys that are on the field that have to come up and make a play to win a football game late in a game. Be it on sometimes it's on offense, sometimes it's on defense, and we missed another field goal. There's plenty of, it was a true team effort there.
Yeah, in all 3 phases of the game, the team failed. And let's just be honest, when it came to those last 3 minutes, it failed. And, you have a kicker that's missed 6 of his last 11 kicks. You have a defense that, again, had to just go out and make a stop. And I know it's easier said than done, but at the same time, you didn't get it done. And that's the result that we see. Is it unfair to base the rest of that game where they played pretty well on that one drive? A little bit, but hey, guess what? It's a results-based industry. And on the offensive side, again, you didn't have that same type of aggressiveness that you came out in the second half with. And by the end of the game, you were already too far gone. And to be honest, this game was a microcosm of the rest of the season, because there were so many times where this Browns team had a chance to win and could be completely in a different position than they are right now. But because of the fact that they weren't able to get the job done earlier in the season, now your backs are completely against the wall. It's now completely out of your hands whether or not you go to the playoffs or not. And looking at the way that this team has played, I'm concerned going into this next week. Now, going up against, Green Bay, then going up on prime time against Pittsburgh and Ben Roethlisberger, quite possibly and hopefully, the last matchup between the Browns and Ben Roethlisberger at this point. And then going up against a young team that is, to be honest, it comes off a little bit more hungry than the Cleveland Browns are right now, in the Cincinnati Bengals in the last week of the year, and quite frankly could be bumped up to that Sunday night football game just because of the implications of that kind of a game. So looking at this is a lot that you can learn of this team going forward. But to be honest, this team should never have been in this position, and it's only because of those mistakes that you had earlier on in the season, compounding week after week after week, that have led to the Browns being in this position altogether.
Yep, 7-7, and 3 games left against teams that are still fighting. The Packers are going to be the champions of their division. They've already locked that up. It's trying to get the home seed and the number 1 seed in the NFC. Well, one guy that played probably better than most people expected, Nick Mullens, making his first start, third-string quarterback, called into duty. Kevin Stefanski talked about what he saw from the Browns' third-string quarterback making his first Cleveland Browns start last night.
Honestly, he played how I thought he would play. He was efficient. He got through his reads, delivered the ball on time, fought till the end. I mean, Nick's a grinder. He fits right in that quarterback room with Baker and Case in terms of how those guys prepare. So not surprised.
And that's one guy you can't place much, if any, of the blame on. He played well enough, certainly, to win in tough circumstances for the Browns.
Yeah, and for the first time in a long time, especially dealing with the Browns' third-string quarterback, he wasn't the reason why the team lost. I think that's the biggest shocker in all of this. With all of the players that were down for COVID, you thought that, again, quarterback coming in, third-string quarterback, you're not expecting much. At the same time, comes in, does a solid job, plays well, and again, at the end of the day, he wasn't the reason why the team lost. And I think that's, a huge job for him and why he played very well. But at the end of the day, I think that he's somebody who I would be comfortable with if they wanted to bring him back and have him be that capable backup behind Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily want to see him every week, but in a pinch, he certainly showed that, he can do what you need someone to do to win a football game on any given week.
Exactly. And that's all you can ask for from a backup quarterback. That's all you really need. Again, it's not somebody who you're expecting to be the starter, Colin Cowherd. But at the end of the day, it's somebody who can come in, fill the job for a week or two, and make sure that it's ready for when the starting quarterback comes back and is ready to start. That's all you need him to do.
Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. Mac, as always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Mac.
Of course, Dave. Always happy to hop on.
All right, Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll hear more from Kevin Stefanski. He should be able to go by Saturday against the Green Bay Packers, as should Baker Mayfield. Sports4CLE will be right back talking more Browns. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Browns getting ready to head to Green Bay to play the Packers on Christmas Day. Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield should be good to go. Even if they don't test out of it, it would be the end of that isolation period. Kevin Stefanski talked about coming back from COVID-19.
You really circled day 10 for all of us, and day 10 occurs for different people on different days. And then obviously the hope is that guys test out sooner than that so you can get them in the building and, get them back going physically, mentally, get them out of practice, those type of things. But short of not knowing, we just have to plan on the people that we know about, and then we'll adjust based on what occurs over the next couple of days.
So welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. So Mary Kay, the good news is there should be some of the guys that were on the COVID list earlier last week that are able to come back. The bad news is they're going to face a Green Bay Packers team that's playing awfully well right now.
Yes, that is true. However, having said that, David, I wrote about this today in my column that COVID-19 right now, these positive tests are the great equalizer, and nobody knows who is going to be testing positive by the time the game rolls around. If you look around the NFL right now, you've got really key players testing positive as these games approach coming up this weekend. Cole Beasley just tested positive of the Bills. He will, as of right now, he has to sit out the game. And then on the Chiefs side, you've got Tyreek Hill testing positive. I mean, these positives change the course of a football game just the way I believe the Browns' 21 positives really altered the course of their football game yesterday and resulted in that heartbreaking loss.
Yeah, there's no question that if the Browns were at full strength, that's a different game completely. So Pro Football Focus, predictions for each quarterback coming up in Week 16. And when you look at what they say for Baker Mayfield, most likely to rack up some big plays on screens. And there's some numbers that back up what they're thinking as far as the way the Browns operate, throwing the screens against the Green Bay Packers. And for Aaron Rodgers, most likely to look like the best quarterback alive at the moment, as he has been playing extremely, extremely well. So those are some of the things that we look at, the quarterback play for both sides. There are some things that both quarterbacks can do against these defenses.
Yes, absolutely. And once again, I think there will be a number of factors involved in how the game goes, in addition to who makes it back and who doesn't make it back because of COVID-19. That will be very crucial. But another thing to consider right now is the fact that, the Browns are down some of their key pass rushers, potentially Myles Garrett with a groin injury. We know Tack McKinley is out for the year, and then Jadeveon Clowney. So that could impact things. But yes, they're heading into play one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I think he's got a good chance of making NFL MVP again for the second straight year. And yeah, he's tough. And we just don't know yet which of the Browns defensive backs are going to be back. John Johnson III has a hamstring injury. Greg Newsome has been out with a concussion. We're not sure if he's ready to come back yet or not. And it's just not a game that you want to be without some of your best DBs.
Yeah, without question. The Packers like to throw the ball all over the place. Pro Football Focus Team of the Week, and kind of interesting, couple of the Browns' offensive linemen on it. And take a look, left tackle Joel Bitonio grades out as the highest graded left tackle in the week, making his first start at left tackle ever. Moved over from guard to left tackle. J.C. Treader, the center, also on it. But Mary Kay, it goes to show you how good Joel Bitonio is. We need to kick him outside. We kick him outside, and he performs as well as anybody at the position in the league.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible, and it's one of the reasons why he was just voted to the Pro Bowl again. Good for him. 5 of the Browns made it again, and Joel is certainly well deserving of this award. But yes, to jump out there and play left tackle, the most demanding spot on the line in the NFL, and excel at it in your first game in the NFL, taking snaps at that position, that's pretty darn remarkable. And it just really speaks to his value and his worth. And it's just funny because I remember back when when he was Plan Z and they tried to make him be the left tackle because of injuries and whatnot. He did not want to do it. He did not want to be out there. He fancies himself a guard, and a darn good one, as we know. And he did not want the responsibility or the job of being out there on an island like that.
Yeah, and Kevin Stefanski talked about, how Joel Bitonio kind of went out there and played as well as the Browns' offensive line last night against the Raiders.
Specific to Joel, again, probably shouldn't be surprised. Did a great job. Did his job, number one, knew what to do. Not just he's a pro's pro, so he stepped up to the challenge. And ultimately, we had some good moments. Offensive line as an offense, just in general, had some good moments. Had some moments that weren't great. But all in all, I thought the guys fought like crazy.
And again, you were down a couple of starters. Wyatt Teller was able to come back, but the offensive line really wasn't a problem. They played well with a couple of guys down.
Yeah, you know what? I thought they actually did do a really nice job with a number of guys down. I mean, you're talking about being without your 2 starting offensive tackles, and you were already down to your backup offensive tackle, or actually your 3rd stringer in rookie James Hudson, because remember, Chris Hubbard is out for the season. So they've gone through some tackles, but they did get the job done. And now the run blocking, obviously, they were not able to necessarily blast open as many holes for Nick Chubb as they usually do, especially when you go to that last drive where they needed to just get 1 first down and couldn't get it. So you kind of have to wonder there a little bit if that may have had something to do with it. But for the most part, those guys held their own, and it wasn't like Nick Mullens could not operate. It wasn't like he didn't have a second to throw. He had some time, and some other things just didn't go their way.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Also take a look at the AFC North standings. Browns don't need any help just yet, but they need to pretty much win out. We'll look into that. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Green Bay Packers on Christmas afternoon. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one's about the kicker.
The Browns have to have the worst field goal kicker in the league. Why didn't they get rid of him when he struggled in the preseason?
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, I don't think Chase McLaughlin is the worst kicker in the league. He's really only struggled as of late, which is again, I'm not going to be defending Chase McLaughlin, but he's 6 for his last 12. The one last night hurt without question.
Yes, it definitely did. I mean, that's the difference in the football game right there. You cannot afford to miss those. And as they move down the stretch, these games are all going to be tight. So you don't want to have that situation when you're trying to get into the playoffs, or if you get into the playoffs and you're trying to advance. You don't want it to come down to a kick. I mean, look at how the Ravens feel about Justin Tucker. They know that he's money and that he is going to nail it whenever they need him to. And that changes your strategy. It changes your game plan. If you need a 55-yard field goal, he's going to get it for you. So yeah, I think it's something they're going to have to take a hard look at. But this is such a short week. I don't know if they have an opportunity to try to get that together when they only have one full day of practice this week. And once again, it's not just the kicker. You have to get the holding situation right and that whole sequence. And not sure they're going to want to change that up midweek this week.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And they're expecting some rain, snow mix, 32, 33 degrees in Green Bay. So it's not going to be ideal weather either. Kevin Stefanski talked about kind of moving on from what was, a tough loss on the last play of the game into what are now basically must-win situations for his team.
That's what you do, win, lose, or draw. You just have to. You have to own it. You got to learn from it. But then you really have to move on. And we'll talk about it when we get back together. But even after those wins, you got to flush those things because it's just these things come at you fast and furious. They're one-game seasons. They really are. That's how we approach it. I think we have a bunch of veterans on this team that understand that. And, again, win, lose, or draw, you got to move on to the next one.
And Mary Kay, when you look at the AFC North standings, again, the Browns are one game out of first place. Bengals, Ravens are 8-6. They play each other this week. So if the Browns are able to beat the Packers, and that's big if, it's not easy, they're a game out of first place. If they lose to the Packers, they're 2 games out of first place with 2 remaining. And the Bengals and the Steelers are still on the schedule. So if the Browns are able to take care of business, they can still win the AFC North. But now you got to go into Green Bay, and you got to beat one of the best teams in the NFL in the Packers.
Yeah, when you look over the remaining schedules of each team, you almost have to wonder if one of these other teams, the Ravens or the Bengals, are going to be able to get the 2 victories that they would need, I think, to kind of top the Browns and keep them from having to get into a tiebreaker situation. Can they do it? Can they win 2 out of their last 3, either one of them? Who knows? And if the Steelers win 2 out of their last 3 and the Browns end up with 9 victories as well, then you're looking at the Steelers possibly winning the division themselves. I mean, it really still is up for grabs for anybody, even though it seemed so hopeless when everybody left the stadium last night. It's really not hopeless. What they have to do, if they can't win out, they at least have to beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and then they have to come home and beat the Bengals here for a sweep in that series in order to have an opportunity to try to steal this division.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's the AFC North has been brutal pretty much all year, and it's going to go right down to the wire, being as brutal as we thought it might be. Well, one of the guys who you talked about, Myles Garrett, not sure if he's going to be able to go. They're still getting more information on that groin injury. He talked about how the Browns approach the season moving forward in these last 3 games.
It's completely up for grabs still. Just got to keep on working, keep on winning. Again, the goal is still to win out, and destiny is still in our favor if we continue to do the things we need to. Everybody's hurting. I don't want to say I'm special. Everybody's fighting through something, and you're gonna have to kill me to take me out the field, or you're gonna have to break my leg. You're gonna take me completely out, because I'm gonna go out there until I can.
And we saw that last night. He was clearly less than 100% in the midway through that fourth quarter and on. Kept trying to get after the quarterback and tried to block the game-winning field goal as well.
Oh, my gosh, yes. I mean, he had to be in so much pain when that was happening. He really gutted it out there. And I think the unfortunate thing right now is the fact that, as Kevin Stefanski mentioned today in his Zoom conference, that he cannot say for sure if Myles Garrett is going to be able to play on Saturday or not. He's awaiting results from some tests. I'm sure he had some MRIs or whatever other tests he underwent today, and they'll know more in the coming days. But for Kevin Stefanski to even sort of suggest that maybe Myles won't play on Saturday, I think that's very significant, and it will hurt them tremendously.
Yeah, and again, Jadeveon Clowney is on the COVID list. Not sure if he'll be able to come off. Tack McKinley, he's out for the year with that tough injury that was suffered. So Port Augustine played really well last night, but you're getting awfully thin and awfully deep into that edge rusher depth there.
Even if Myles does play, and Jadeveon's not back yet, and Tack's not back yet. I mean, Tack's out for the season with the torn Achilles. You're looking at Myles probably having to play more snaps than you would want him to play at this point in the season, especially with as injured as he is right now. So that's going to be difficult if he has to play a ton of snaps. I don't think he can do it. If he plays at all, I think he's going to have to be somewhat limited. And this is just not the time of year that you want your best defensive player to have to be limited. So for him to suffer that groin injury and for Tack to be lost, that's going to be really tough over these next few games.
Yeah, I would agree. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take another time out. On the other side of the break, we will look at Pro Football Focus's highest graded Browns from Week 15. A couple of guys stepping up and playing well. Plus, Kevin Stefanski will talk about playing to your strengths and kind of counterbalancing that with what other teams expect you to do late in games. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Chris Broussard from FS1's First Things First talked about the Browns after last night's loss. Here's Chris Broussard.
There is a soap opera quality about these Cleveland Browns. It's almost like Dallas. It's not quite to the point of the Dallas Cowboys, but it's similar, where there's always seems to be drama, and there's something, like, I don't know if it's because of the high expectations, if it's because they were on Hard Knocks a few years ago, if it's because they had these outsized personalities like OBJ and Baker Mayfield. But whatever it is, the front office, I think, is solid, and I like Kevin Stefanski. But there is a drama about this team that I think works against 100%. Them, just like the Cowboys. It's like you're waiting for something negative to happen because it's a soap opera. Right. It's a performance, and they got to get rid of that. And I'm going to say this, Nick. I think Baker Mayfield may need to consider dropping the progressive commercials. I really mean, now, I don't think that impacts his play.
That's the line there.
It's the best thing he's doing right now. It's the only good thing he's doing.
I get it, Jenna, but does he want to be an actor or does he want to be a quarterback?
Mary Kay, I'm not quite sure what progressive commercials have to do with Baker. They do realize he's not taking time out of practice to go film them. They did them, and I keep hearing about all these progressive commercials. The guy's a personality. He's entitled to get endorsements because people want him to represent their product. I got no issues with that, and I think anybody that does is just looking for something. I don't get that at all.
Well, first of all, let me say I love the progressive commercials. I think they are hilarious. I think he's doing a great job in those, and as you mentioned, I mean, he's such a natural. It doesn't take them a long time to film those things. They probably go in one afternoon in the off season here or there and knock out several of them or whatever. I mean, he's just got a knack for that. I think he is right behind like a Peyton Manning in terms of, comedic chops to pull something like that off. So I think they're very fun. And, my wish for him and for the Cleveland Browns and for fans is that the performance would match up to, those larger than life commercials, which are just, they're fun. They're just a lot of fun. But you would like to see him actually playing a little bit better this season. I mean, it just has not been a good season for him. Injuries have played a large role in that, but it was a pivotal year. It was a very big year for him to be able to step up and say, this is my team, this is my town, this is my house here at First Energy, and nobody's going to get out of here alive, and we're going to rock this place.
Yeah, and I get that, but again, I just don't. the guy's not missing any practice time. It's just I don't get the whole commercial thing, but that's all right. And I agree with you. I think it's fantastic in him. Let's take a look at the highest graded Browns from Week 15, so this past game. Joel Bitonio mentioned they list him as a guard. He played tackle. So moved to a new position, still graded out at better than 91. J.C. Tretter, Myles Garrett, those three are always among the tops. Now, a couple guys that were pressed into action, Porter Gustin, Sheldon Day on the defensive line, and that's a good sign because with as banged up as that unit is, they're going to need Porter Gustin and Sheldon Day to go and play that good, maybe even a little bit better if they are hoping to get done what they need to do against the Packers Christmas Day in Green Bay.
That's very true because, once again, we do not know yet who is going to be back off of COVID-19 reserve. Now, Jadeveon Clowney, who actually was symptomatic, he sat out practice on Thursday, I think it was last week. My days are all mixed up. But he was the latest guy to be placed on the list on Sunday. So he might have a ways to go before he can actually get back. And therefore, who knows if he'll even be playing in this game. So, yes, those backup guys who stepped in and did a nice job, the Gustins with that nice recovery that he had, Sheldon Day collaborating on the strip with JOK. I mean, those are the kinds of plays that you need from your defense down the stretch if the Browns are going to pull this off.
Yeah, without question, and they're going to get the opportunity. It certainly looks like it. Kevin Stefanski was asked this question, and it's an interesting one. How do you balance playing to your strengths versus playing what the defense knows you're going to do? And it was specifically about running the football with Nick Chubb because the Browns know they're a running team, and the Raiders knowing that they're going to run the ball. Here's Kevin Stefanski on that balance.
There's so many variables at play there, and obviously Nick being a big variable, but you're just thinking about matchups, each position that you have versus them. But to say that you're always going to run it there, that's just not the case. There's always different avenues you can go in those drives, but ultimately we didn't come through. So it's frustrating to all of us. I know it's frustrating to the players, the coaches. And we have high expectations on ourselves to come through in big moments, but we didn't get it done last night.
And again, I can't argue with putting the ball in Nick Chubb's hands 3 times in that situation, given the fact, and I know he played well, but when you look at it, are you going to put the ball in your third-string quarterback's hands, Nick Mullens, or your all-pro running back's hands? And if you want to argue either way, I'll listen to it, but I'm not going to second-guess either of those decisions.
Right, because we have seen teams win this season, as I've been saying, this season with attempting 3 passes or completing 3 passes and only, I have that wrong. Either attempting only 3 passes like the Patriots did in a victory and only completing 5 passes like the Colts did in a victory. So you can do it all different kinds of ways. You can win with running the ball a million times in unconventional ways. So it's really not that. It's about executing the play in the moment, and they just weren't able to do that. And I do think that maybe if they had their full complement of guys, maybe things would have been different. I also have to wonder, and we won't know the answer to this. We probably won't know the answer to this. He was asked it today, would you have done something different there? Now, there's no way he's going to throw Alex Van Pelt under the bus in that situation. Not going to happen. But you'd have to think that maybe Kevin Stefanski would have called that a little bit differently, although Baker Mayfield has accused him of running a conservative game plan. But I still think that there would have been at least one pass or something else in there that would have mixed it up a little bit.
Yeah, but if you were going to give somebody the responsibility of calling plays, the last thing in the world you should do, that would be like somebody looking over, your shoulder while you're writing a story, or somebody looking over my shoulder while I'm doing the show. It's like, if you want me to do the show, let me do the show. And so if you want to let him call the plays, let him call the plays. The one thing I would say, there were some execution issues in that 2-minute defense that kind of popped up, specifically letting a guy get out of bounds, splitting 2 defenders on a 2nd and 11. That right there was the play that I thought, ooh, this is not good.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing, though, about in the course of a football game, you're going to have those kinds of execution issues. When I look at the Raiders in that game, they had far worse execution throughout most of the game than the Cleveland Browns did. I was keeping track of dropped passes. I think they dropped 6 passes. Now, DPJ struggled in the first half of that game, but for the Raiders, in the first 3 quarters of that game, Derek Carr was making some really fine throws, and they were just dropping them. Deshaun Jackson had that one where he was wide open, and there were others. There were numerous others by their tight ends, and of course, he didn't have Darren Waller. They muffed the ball twice. They fumbled the ball twice. They threw an interception. They had 4 holding calls. So you want to talk about lack of execution during a football game. But in the end, in the clutch, when it's time to go down and win the football game, Derek Carr was able to do that. I mean, he was able to do that. So, I think it's one thing that the Cleveland Browns really still have to learn how to do is close out those close football games. They haven't done it this year.
Yeah, fair enough. Everything is magnified late in a game with a close game because that's what people remember. They remember the games leading up to the deciding plays. So that's absolutely fair enough. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. On the other side of the break, we will focus a little more on the Packers. Browns getting ready to head to Green Bay to play the Packers, Lambeau Field, Christmas Day. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns, getting ready to head to Green Bay to face the Packers on Christmas Day. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, this one about the Browns' offensive system.
I was just watching the Orange and Brown report, or listening to it, and Scott Pasco was talking about how the offensive philosophy of the Browns is not working. It hasn't worked for a year and a half. And it's great to want to run the ball and with big bodies and everything, but I think this is offense. I mean, we're the only one the only team that's doing this, and there are other teams that love to run too, and they're not doing it. So, and maybe ask the coach, what the hell? Why are you doing this? Since it's not working,
And Mary Kay Cabot, I don't think you could honestly say it hasn't worked for a year and a half. I would give you maybe the last 9-10 weeks, the system has not been great. 49ers are still doing the same basic offensive system. There's the Vikings, there's others. But clearly, the results are not what they were last year or even earlier this year with this system.
Well, what they have to try to figure out is, is it the personnel? Is it the scheme? Is it the quarterback? Is it the play calling? Is it all of the above? The passing game needs an overhaul. There's no question about that. Now, would it be as simple as plugging in a new quarterback and seeing if that does the trick in any way, shape, or form? Would it be as simple as surrounding Baker Mayfield with 3 or 4 new receivers next year, which I think they do need an infusion of talent there? Would that do what they needed to do? I think in some ways, if they had different personnel, they would be calling the game differently. You can't call a high-flying passing game when you don't have the horses to run it. You've got to be able to have the personnel to run that kind of a scheme. Joe Burrow has some really good downfield receivers to throw the ball to. Even Ben Roethlisberger really does. So, the Browns are lacking in that area right now. The receiving core isn't what they thought it was going to be. And look, you saw how Donovan Peoples-Jones struggled in the first half of that game yesterday. So they don't have what they need at receiver. That kind of hurts everything in the passing game. And they have to determine how they plan to fix that.
Yeah, and the passing game kind of figures into the running game, because if you can't stretch the field and you can't spread it out, there's going to be more bodies that you have to move around when you're trying to run the football. Everything in that offense is interrelated, and I think you're right. The passing game needs an overhaul, and that may fix some of the ills that we see. Kevin Stefanski talked about the challenge that's in front of the Browns. They have to go and play the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay.
Yeah, great team. Just won the NFC North. Really well coached. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is a great player. So we're going to have to make sure we put a plan together, offense, defense, and special teams, that we put our guys in position to succeed, positions where they can go make plays, and then we got to find a way.
And Mary Kay, it's not comforting, but you do have to find a way, and you have no idea how many of those defensive backs you're going to have, and you're definitely going to be thin on the defensive line.
Yeah, and you know what? That is the strength of this football team. The strength of this team has been putting Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, and Takk McKinley out there, rotating Takk in, and having him use his explosive speed off the ball, which he was really coming around when he started to get healthy there. So to have those guys doing what they do, and Myles and Jadeveon complementing each other so much as a 1-2 punch, that's something that teams have really had to worry about this season. It's something that Aaron Rodgers would be worrying about, something that Ben Roethlisberger would be worrying about. Now, if Myles has to be out for any length of time, that is going to be devastating. I mean, just absolutely devastating. I mean, it's like taking TJ Watt away, or Joey Bosa, or Nick Bosa, or any one of those big name edge rushers that can just completely wreck the football game. And Aaron Donald too, an interior guy. But it's one of those big name Pro Bowl type players that can just go in there and disrupt the quarterback, wreck the game in the same way that Myles did the week before to Tyler Huntley with the strip, scoop, sack, score. So it's just going to be amazing to try to overcome the loss of Myles if he can't play. They've got to hope he can get back by Saturday.
Yeah, and the Packers with Aaron Rodgers are averaging 31 a game in their last 4, so they're playing well offensively. What about the Browns? Baker Mayfield, in theory, should be back based on the 10-day COVID list. He and Kevin Stefanski should be back. What do you see the Browns potentially trying to do offensively in a game where weather may be a factor? It's supposed to be rainy, rain, snow, possible mix, 32, windy, that kind of deal.
Well, you almost really have to hope that Kareem Hunt can get back, but he was dealing with an ankle injury, would have been ruled out of the game anyways. Then he goes on COVID-19 reserve, and I don't know if his window is going to be up yet. We don't know who's going to be able to test out and test negative. It's kind of a crapshoot this week, and everything's new, everything's different. The goalposts, again, have changed so much. It's so hard to tell. It would be tremendous for them to have Kareem back, because then you do get that 1-2 punch of Nick and Kareem, which is so effective when they have it. Now, what they don't have, they're just not going to have their offensive tackles. And James Hudson was also a late addition to the COVID list this week. So, who knows? He might not be back either. You might be looking at Joel Bitonio at left tackle again and Blake Hance at right tackle. And it's not ideal, even though Joel played really well. you want your line intact. Well, it's not going to be that. So they're just going to have to make do. They're going to have to make do. Hopefully for them, they'll get Jarvis back, Austin Hooper back. And if they can do that, they should be able to try to revive this passing game to a degree.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Mary Kay, as always, thanks so much for the time and the insight.
Sure, thanks for having me.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot. Make sure you read her pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you again back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest Tim Bielek from cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, and Hayden Grove, also from cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. That's tomorrow, 4 o'clock, right here on Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.